Let's start with the tow vehicle. Got to watch the inflation on those rear tires especially. All of them should be checked on a regular basis. Underinflated tires create heat, friction, which transfers into the bearings, the brake system, and if underinflated to a certain point at the right speed, those tires will burst into flames. They're petroleum based. The grease in the bearings will burst into flames. If you had wood floors, that fire will transfer to those wood floors because the tires are so close. Then you might as well just stand back because it's not going to stop burning. So it's important that you have those bearings annually checked by somebody who knows what they're doing to ensure you have enough grease, that your grease seals aren't leaking and going all over your brake system, hence no brakes if that's the situation. Your lights, all your lights. And I'm going to give you a simple way that I came up with, and it works and it makes things a lot easier for you when you're first getting hooked up to the trailer and thinking about going out. I try to tell people too to exercise your trailer during the winter time, your off months. A lot of people leave them out there most of the year during bad weather and don't go anywhere. You have to understand that the brake systems on these the drums are cast iron, the brake parts are metal. They will rust and seize up. And the brakes on these trailers do not adjust themselves. Okay, they have to be manually done. They have to be equal when they come on, so they have to be measured. You have to have certain tools to be able to do this. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, that's great. But there's a lot of things that need to be done in order to make sure that those brakes come on evenly. So, and especially in an emergency situation, seeing too many trailers in accidents where the tongue came off. And you think, okay, the chains, in my state, they're supposed to be crossed. So when they come tight, this is on a bumper pull, not a gooseneck. Gooseneck, that's a real nightmare. But by having those chains crossed and that tongue comes down, it acts as a cradle and keeps it from dragging the ground. That's provided that they hold. Now I've seen a lot of trailers over the years to where they have what amounts to a dog chain on their trailers. It's not big enough to hold the pressure or the weight, and they snap. I've seen half-inch aircraft cable at 22,000 pounds, 2 of them snap. Because that trailer's coming off and there's this sheer inertia. Back it comes and it puts the tension on those things break and come loose. In the event that those chains break, your umbilical cord or your plug-in, 7-pin, 6-pin, your cord in comes disconnected. That cable, most of you haven't seen these. I'll explain these to you in a minute. These are the same length. They're 4 feet for a reason. The chains are only about 36 unless you're winding them or tying them in knots, which is not a good idea. This is 4 feet long. They're 4 feet long so that it only deploys. There's a switch here, and it pulls a grenade pin. You got this little black box on your trailer. Some of them are on the side of the tongue, some of them are underneath. Goosenecks are usually on the hitch portion of it. Extremely important that this is maintained. If it's got any frays or it cuts, don't tie it in a knot. Get a new one. These make your life a lot easier because they're like a slinky. So when you're not using it, they stow nice. When you are using it, there's no slack, no loops you've got to zip tie or bag tie up out of the way. Biggest offense I see is people weaving them through their chains. That encumbers it. If it gets caught in there and it doesn't deploy when it's supposed to, when everything else fails, it won't pull that pin. What that pin does, you can hand this around, let me get it back and look at them. That's all stainless, 1,200-pound tensile strength cable, plastic coated. And it takes about 35 to 40 pounds of pressure to pull that pin. But it's there for a reason. And then that little switch inside has 2 contacts. That little plastic pin keeps them separated, spring loaded. So what happens is when that pin pulls, this wire is going directly to your little breakaway battery. Should have the box, battery in it, hopefully a charger. But if not, sometimes they're under the tongue, sometimes they're in the new trailers, they're in the tack room. And they won't be in a plastic box, they'll just be sitting there in a little sheet metal enclosure. So you gotta make sure that those are functional and ready. Do not tag lights to it. Its sole purpose is for an emergency situation. So here's how it works. All your chains fail, your cord in, which allows all the brakes, everything from the truck, including the brake circuit, to function to your controller under your dash. Once that's disconnected, you have no brakes. That trailer's gonna roll back, everything failed, and that cord is gonna pull that pin. One side is to the battery, like I said. The other circuit is to the brakes, directly to the brakes. When that pulls, it is energizing those brakes full on. And they're gonna make a lot of smoke. It's like you slammed on the brakes. That's why it's important that these brakes are adjusted on a regular basis. The time you have it torn down, repacked, they should be readjusting those brakes and measuring to make sure they're all coming on equally and functioning properly. So that comes back, everything's working perfectly. Your brakes are gonna slam on. The reason why you want it to track straight back and not go to the left or pull to the right is because it'll go in oncoming traffic, off a cliff, God forbid, where it goes. And then whoever's behind you, if they get in an accident, they own you. So it's just not something you want to experience. That battery is crucial that you test and make sure it works. This little device is called a load tester. You can take a little light 12-volt tester all day long and test the voltage on a battery. Just like a battery tester you get at Radio Shack. And it says, I've got 12 volts. Until you put a load on it, meaning a demand, just like you're turning on a light switch. They don't come on until you put a load on the demand. You don't know whether that battery is any good or not. And this goes for car, truck batteries, any kind of batteries. So this device is a little computer, and they have different ones. They have a load bank, and they load test it. Now, if it needles over because a plate inside that battery cell is broken and grounding out, you will not have anything back there. And you got to remember, those tons on those trailers are banging around, and they get abused. That's why I gel cell batteries. And if any of you have any questions of part numbers or where I get them or what I use, just email me, and I'd gladly give you the information. So it's best to have that battery at least annually, and the person that does your wheel bearings and those type of things should have this type of equipment. Or you can take the battery out, take it to Napa, and have them bench test it, load test it, okay? If it's good or it needs a little bit of a charge, then great, get it done then and there before you go back out again, but don't go out without one. And if you don't have one, it'll probably cost you, on average, a couple $100 to put the system in if your trailer didn't come manufactured with it, or it was sold in a state that doesn't require it.